other losses, and I won't minimize any of yours because when you pile them all up, they are taxing. We thought we had finally achieved a victory over a grueling drug addiction with my brother. I'm going to hit OK here. He was found alone in his apartment after he died. And then in the days followed, I discovered a text message that he had sent to me before his death. But sometimes I didn't even see it. Somehow I never saw it. That was back in the old flip phone days. It simply read, I feel like I'm in a tunnel and I cannot see a way out. Those words have stayed with me ever since. Like so many people who are struggling, he reached out. And like so many families, I was left wondering what might have been different if I had seen the message. That experience deepened my understanding of grief in a way that I never wanted, but it also shaped the work that I do today. It reminds me that behind every diagnosis, every life-changing event, and every family facing brain injury or stroke and so forth, these are the people carrying invisible burdens. They are filling the room here. My goal isn't to erase your grief, people, because grief is a natural response to loss. My goal is to help you find hope, meaning, and a way to move forward while carrying the grief and not after. Let's circle back to Jake and Maria for a moment in our minds, not in the slides. Jake knows he has a brain injury, and Maria knew she had a stroke, and their spouses knew that life has changed. So why does it still hurt so much, months or even years after? So I want you to think of the brain as a prediction machine, as you see here in the slide. Grief is what feels like when the brain keeps looking for that new life. I'm sorry, the life that it knew, not the new life, the life that it previously knew. Every day, without us realizing it, our brains predict what will happen next. They predict who will be sitting across the breakfast table, how our body will respond when we stand up, what words will come out when we speak, what our workday will look like, and what tomorrow is likely to bring. Those predictions are not guesses. They're built from years, even decades of experience. Jake's brain had spent years predicting that he could solve problems quicker, remembering conversations, drive to work, and make decisions without thinking twice. And Maria's brain spent years predicting that she would wake up beside Tom, carry on conversations effortlessly, make dinner, shop for groceries, and plan for retirement with Tom. Then, in a matter of seconds, everything changed, except for the brain's predictions. The brain doesn't wake up one morning, instantly erase 30, 40, 50 years of learned experience. Instead, it keeps looking for the life it knew. And this is why grief is so disorienting. Your brain is yearning and searching. For caregivers, the brain is searching too. It's looking for the spouse who used to share responsibilities, the parent who once offered advice, or the partner who once remembered birthdays and paid the bills. That yearning and searching is what grief feels like. Wouldn't you agree? A wave of grief happens when the brain makes another prediction and it no longer matches your reality. Jake reaches for a memory that just doesn't come. And Maria walks into a noisy grocery store expecting it to feel familiar, only to discover that it now overwhelms her. And Tom instinctively asks Maria to remember something before realizing now he carries that responsibility himself. Each moment is another prediction, meeting a different reality, which gives the brain another opportunity to learn and reach. And that takes energy. The brain likes certainty, doesn't it? Brain injury and strokes and so forth, they don't work that way. The good news is that your brain can adapt. and it's remarkably adaptable. Every time we acknowledge the reality of what has changed, rather than avoiding it, we give the brain another opportunity to update rather than avoiding it. That doesn't happen all at once, though. When we are talking neurons in the nervous system, you're talking a slow recovery, whether it be a nerve in your extremities or the nerves in your brain. It's a slow recovery. It happens through hundreds and hundreds of small moments. Little by little, the brain stops searching so desperately, though, for what used to be, and it begins to build a new understanding of what is. At first, a photograph of a familiar face may actually trigger intense pain because the brain immediately notices the absence. When my children, or one of them especially, decided to estrange his parents, I took the pictures off the walls. They were triggering to me. Someday I might be able to put them back up. Right now, they trigger intense pain because the brain immediately notices that absence. And over time, they can bring gratitude, they can bring warmth. But maybe you're not at that point right now. And the connection, and it can work alongside running tandem with the sadness. And that's why talking about loss matters. And in my Pearls method, acknowledgement, the letter A, is a lot of that. When we tell our story, when we cry, when we laugh, when we get mad, when we remember, or we simply allow ourselves to acknowledge what has happened, we help the brain integrate the experience instead of continually fighting against it. The part of the brain involved in organizing, planning, and making meaning becomes more engaged, while the brain's alarm system will quiet eventually. The goal is to help the brain learn a new reality. And that is why, after a brain injury or stroke, it's not about getting back to normal. It's about reteaching the brain and ourselves that although life has changed and likely changed forever, it's still possible to build a meaningful future. Renewing the mind one thought at a time. If our brains are constantly building and rebuilding pathways, then one of the most hopeful truths is this, is that our thoughts matter. That doesn't mean we pretend everything's okay. It doesn't mean we deny our losses or force ourselves to look on the bright side. I don't want you to do that. We've already learned that healing begins by acknowledging what has changed. Once we acknowledge the loss, we also have a choice about where we repeatedly direct our attention. Direct your attention to the slide. Whatever is true, whatever is honorable, whatever is just and pure, lovely, commendable, if there's any excellence, and if there's anything worthy of praise, think on these things. Sound familiar? We are not to ignore suffering, but rather intentionally on purpose, train our minds toward what is still true, what is still good, what is still possible, even in the middle of pain. The brain will strengthen the pathways that it uses most often. Let me repeat. The brain strengthens the pathways it uses most often. While we cannot choose our circumstances, we can intentionally guide our attention toward thoughts that foster hope, gratitude, purpose, connection, and possibility. I am not a believer in false positivity. I'm a very realistic person. Every time we do, we are reinforcing pathways that support resilience rather than remaining trapped in fear, despair, and helplessness. And it's also true that moments of joy, purpose, laughter, connection, beauty, and hope can exist right alongside of grief. The mindset shifts that we're going to talk about today, we're going to explore practical ways of helping your brain build new pathways, pathways that don't really erase your story, but help you live with greater peace, resilience, and purpose. Here's just a few today. One of the greatest sources of suffering is the constant comparing between life we are living and the life we are expected to be living. If I can just get back to where I was before, everything will be okay. Many people describe brain injury or stroke as being forced into plan B. They feel as though the life they carefully, I should say, built, has been taken away and replaced with a life that they never wanted. But let's do a mindset shift. What if there was never a plan A or a plan B? What if there was only our life? Life has always been unpredictable. None of us were ever promised a particular timeline, perfect health, or a future that unfolded exactly the way we imagined. We simply became attached to the expectations that we held about how our story would go. When brain injury or stroke changes the story, it can feel as though we lost who we are. We lost our identity. But really, have we? Or have we lost the expectations we held for ourselves? Jake is still Jake and Maria is still Maria. Their abilities have changed. Their routines have changed, but their worth, their character, their capacity to love, their ability to contribute to the world remains. It's just how that has changed. Identity, people, is much deeper than what we can produce or accomplish. When we release the expectation that life has to look the way we imagined, we create room in our brains to discover this chapter of life and what it can become. That doesn't mean we stop grieving or wishing things had been different. Instead, we begin asking a different question. Not how do I get my old life back, but given where I am today, how do I live this life as fully and meaningfully as I can? Here's mindset shift number 2. Again, these are all in the notes that you can scan after. One of the remarkable things about the brain is that it is constantly looking for evidence to prove what it already believes. If I begin to believe I'm never going to be able to do anything meaningful again, my brain starts noticing every struggle and it overlooks my small successes. If I believe no one understands what I'm going through, many people probably don't, and that might be true. But if we believe that no one understands what I'm going through, your brain becomes especially sensitive to moments when people say the wrong things, miss the point, or fail to show up when you hoped that they would. It's because our brains are wired to look for patterns that support the story that we already wrote. After brain injury or stroke, it's easy for painful experiences to become part of our identity. We begin defining ourselves by what happened to us instead of recognizing what happened is one chapter of our story, and it's not the entire story. That doesn't mean that these painful experiences aren't real. Before we begin changing the story, grief has to be seen, not fixed, not explained away, not covered with well-meaning cliches like everything happens for a reason or at least you're alive, at least you have good care. People don't heal because someone offers perfect words. They heal when someone has the courage to sit beside them with genuine curiosity and ask, tell me what this has been like for you. I do that in my work often, and it's deeply enriching. Being deeply seen and heard tells the nervous system you're safe. Your experience matters. From that place of safety, the brain becomes more open to learning, growing, and creating new possibilities. Only then can we begin asking different questions. Instead of, why is this happening to me? We might ask, what is one thing I can do today that moves me toward the life I want to build? Instead of, Well, this is who I am now. We can ask, what strengths, gifts, and values are still part of who you are? The goal isn't to ignore your pain, but rather make sure pain doesn't become the only story that your brain continues to tell you. And mindset shift number 3. One of the most powerful ways the brain begins to heal is through purpose. After a brain injury, stroke, or another life-changing loss, it's natural for the mind to focus on what has changed. What can I no longer do? Who am I now? What did I lose? How is my life different from what I imagined? Those questions are part of grief. But eventually, healing begins by exploring a different question. What can I still offer? Our identity is not only built on what we accomplish, the roles we hold, the abilities we have. Our identity is also shaped by the way we connect, encourage, care, and contribute. Your brain may have new limitations. I'm sure it does. But the limitations do not define your value. You defined it. When we serve others, even in small ways, we remind the brain that we are still valuable, needed, and connected. And that is the letter S in my Pearls method, is support and service to others. When I first begin working with people, they do not believe that they can serve others, and we don't go there at first. But when they're finished with me, they're full of joy serving others and fills their cup. When we focus only on what's been lost, the brain remains anchored in absence. When we begin identifying ways that we can contribute, the brain starts building pathways toward possibility. Purpose activates areas of the brain involved in motivation, planning, and forward movement. Fancy people call that executive functioning. And then it gives us a dopamine hit to keep on, to keep on. It helps us shift from simply surviving the loss toward creating meaning within the life we have now. By serving others, you are creating your own medicine. Here are some examples of how you can serve others while meeting yourself where you are at. I don't want you to call these small ways. They aren't small, they're large. Talking with someone who feels alone is a large thing. Sharing your experience so another feels understood. Offer encouragement. Take time to listen. Show kindness because you know what that suffering feels like. So now you have empathy. Are you going to develop your empathy or are you going to squelch it? Some moments tell the brain something important. Service tells the brain that my story is not over. I still have something to give. The goal is not to return to who you were before your loss or any of your expectations. The goal is to discover who you are becoming and how your experiences, even the painful ones, can become a source of connection, compassion, and impact. And here are some bonus mindset shifts. I spelled mindset wrong. Mindset shifts after brain injury. Let's shift the words, my life is over, to my life is changing. How about changing, well, this is who I am, to, well, this is what I'm experiencing. And then instead of saying I should be further along, say healing will happen in its time. Instead of I need to go back, what about I need to move forward and I can? Instead of saying my capacity has changed, so I'm not valuable anymore, my value remains, is what you're going to say. I have to be strong. No, you don't. You have to be honest. Nobody understands. Well, I can communicate what I need so they can understand. I have to fix everything. Change that to I can take one next step. How is that landing for you? There's always hope, people. As I close today, I want to be sure you have hope. I feel like I'm in a tunnel and I cannot see a way out. Think about it. My brother's text has stayed with me because when someone is in that kind of darkness, the tunnel can feel endless. It can feel as though there's no other side. It can feel as though the pain is the entire story. But what I've learned through my own grief and through working with others walking through unimaginable changes, it's this, that there's always hope. Always, always. Hope doesn't mean pretending nothing happened. Hope doesn't minimize the pain. Hope rushing through grief or forcing ourselves to find a positive lesson before we're ready. Hope begins by acknowledging what has changed. And it begins by allowing ourselves to say, this is hard and this matters. This loss has changed me. And then slowly hope begins to grow when we discover that we do not have to walk through the tunnel alone. For those living with brain injury or stroke, hope may look different than you originally imagined. It may not be a return to the exact life you had before. It may be discovering new strengths, new purpose, new connections, new understanding of what's possible. For caregivers, hope may begin with recognizing that you are not invisible. Your grief matters too. Your exhaustion matters. Your love matters. Your advocacy definitely matters. The brain can adapt. The heart can heal. A life can still hold meaning after something has changed forever. My brother's message reminds me why support matters, why being seen matters, and why reaching out matters. Guilt and shame are your enemy. Don't go there. Pity is your enemy. Don't go there either. Because sometimes hope can enter through a very small opening of a conversation, a person who listens, a community that understands, and a hand reaching back. The tunnel may be dark. That's true. But you don't have to walk through it alone. Here's how I can help. There's a lovely testimonial from a client that I received. The name has changed, of course. And this is really why I love to do what I do, people. She writes thank you from the bottom of my heart for the time, patience, and attention you gave me yesterday. I'm really moved. Not many people would remain present and supported as you did. Our conversation meant more than I can easily put into words. You helped me see my pain, resilience, and future with more clarity and hope. I feel heard, respected, and encouraged, and it's rare. You reminded me that when we do our best with what we have, God places the right people in our path. Yesterday, you were one of those people for me. Thank you for being part of my journey. I will never forget your kindness. And just to let you know, we were actually speaking in a different language. We didn't understand each other. So that's where technology came in and translated for us. Coaching is not therapy. Whether you've sustained some kind of a brain injury or caring for someone who has, there are things you cannot share with family and friends. And do not, people, expect family and friends to fully support you. They are not able to. Coaches offer structure, support, and accountability. We validate your grief experience. We don't argue with your grief experience. Your experience is truth. Then we tailor a system to promote your healing, particularly designed for your situation. That's why I don't sell a workbook. Everyone I coach is different. I have tools, and I take out the tools that I need for that particular person. And then I provide an accountability. We follow up the next time. How did it go? We respect your privacy and confidentiality because our jobs depend on it and because we respect you. You can't tell a family or a friend. They just might say something. And some things are to be confidential. As I promised, here are the notes on the session today. You can scan that code, or you can email me at this email address enclosed, attached to the slide here. You can request the notes. Just email me at lisa.kelly@spaciouscornercoaching.com. For immediate access, scan the code. Thank you for showing up today, people. Understanding grief can become one of the most powerful tools for healing. Understanding it. You can reach me on these platforms. If you want to take a picture of that with your phone, I'll give you a minute. I purposely put the same face on my thumbnail so that you'd know who I am. That thumbnail face is on Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook, my website, and my email thumbnail. That's me. Again, thank you for coming today.
Thank you, Lisa. Bravo, bravo. Put
You're welcome.
a BIHN aggregate round of applause. Great presentation.
Thank you.
Um, I was looking around the Zoomosphere as you were sharing, and there were a lot of heads nodding.
Good.
The one of the lines that really got me was when you said losses that society doesn't fully understand.
Okay.
And
Mhm.
many of us, after our injuries, present very much like we did before, setting expectations that we are who we used to be. And I love your one of the things that's defined BIH in an organization and a community is uh, the development of practical strategies to live our best lives. And your mindset shifts were absolutely perfect. We become what we think. And I was told very early on, be careful what you tell yourself. Not everything that you hear in your own voice is accurate. What I'd like to do is open up the session for questions. Lisa, could you minimize
Yeah.
your slides? I'd appreciate that.
Yeah.
And feel free to drop your questions in the chat or raise your hand. We're going to have a little bit of discussion. And we'll start with Barb George asks, how does one be open with empathy, but protect their boundaries and self without being portrayed as selfish?
First of all, I would say if you had to ask that question, you yourself think you're being selfish. Deep down inside, you feel you're being selfish and you need a mindset shift. Do you deserve the type of attention that you would give to somebody else? Does that help?
Go ahead, Barb. I just give you permission to unmute. So if this is Barb's question, feel free to banter back.
Thank you. It does, but it doesn't make it easier.
Oh, yeah.
No,
What can we do?
non-simplification.
Right. Is
Um,
there any specific things that I can help with you as far as technical skills on? I was playing with my slides and I perhaps didn't hear the entirety of the question too, Barb, in fairness to you.
I it just I know myself very well
Yeah.
and I care about people, but sometimes they walk all over me.
Hmm.
And if I walk away or I put up a boundary, I'm perceived in that stratosphere as selfish and it comes back at me later on. So I'm protecting myself. I'm putting up my boundaries and people plow through them.
Right. And boundaries are a big topic today. We never learned about boundaries when we were growing up, right, Barbara?
No, no.
I mean, the younger generation knows how to set up a boundary, that's for sure. Let's take it from them and let's practice on them since they know how to dish it out and they certainly must know how to take it, right? No, seriously, if you surprise people with a boundary, expect that. But my idea would be to set up the boundary prior to it happening. If you can perceive what can happen, um, I have a friend who would invite me on Wednesdays. Well, I'm busy on Wednesdays. And then she would pout, well, we're going to talk about Wednesdays, you and I, and we're going to do it on another day. What works for you? It's hard at first. Boundaries feel uncomfortable to people who overgive.
Amen to that. I want to share
Oh dear.
uh, a comment from Betsy in the chat, and it sounds like a mindset that we're going to have Lisa's bonus mindset and one added by Betsy. She notes, I'm unaffected by the judgment of others. When others judge me, it defines them and not me. It's one of my favorite quotes. So, Betsy, thank you for sharing that.
That is
Um,
awesome.
Also known as what others think of me is none of my business. Sue, let me ask you to unmute. Nice to see you, friend.
Thank you. Nice to see everyone. Let me just start with Lisa. That was amazing. I'm sitting here nodding my head the whole time. It just
Oh,
rings so true
yeah.
wherever you are. Yeah.
Thank
I'm
you.
5.5 years out, and yeah, you have to relearn things like you said and be positive and set the boundaries to avoid the triggers. Yeah. And it feels good to do that
Mm,
so that you continue to feel good. And you have to do that sometimes,
mm.
like just in terms of, setting a limit on how much TV or news you can watch today so you
Right?
don't get triggered. It's as
Mm,
easy as that,
mm,
let alone, avoiding people that you perceive as triggers. It works best for you in the long run. I really appreciate that. And knowing who you are today. Yeah.
yeah.
And have having new expectations instead of the old ones. I went through that. I went through that grief. Like I wanted to be the old Sue. And I had a counselor say to me, nope, you're never going to be the old Sue, but you can be any Sue you want. And that resonated with me. I appreciate it. I thought, okay, then. Yeah. So now I have an opportunity to work with new medical students. And I'm going to take this. I'm presenting as a patient. I want to take this with me so they listen, they hear us, and show some empathy, how important that is. Yeah, so thanks again, Lisa. That was amazing. I really appreciate it.
Sue, I'm so glad it was helpful to you, and I'm especially glad that I was able to resonate in the hearts of most of you. That was, I really want to align myself with your pain too. I don't want any of us to compare pains. There's never a number one on a scale of 1 to 10 and a 10. I think grief and loss is always a 10, and we can manage a 10.
Thank you, Sue. And you're actually speaking directly to one of the mindset shift number 3 bullet items. When we serve others, we remind the brain that we are still valuable, needed, and connected. It's in giving that we receive. And I'm glad you're doing that. You're bringing an insider's voice to those who you'll be serving.
I
Um,
love it. I'm so excited.
it's a great feeling knowing that our experience can be used to teach others.
I'm curious as to anybody in the crowd, what are some of the things that you have been able to do to serve others, whether it be encouraging with a post-it note or any type of act that would bring a smile to somebody or bring encouragement to somebody. I'll just share one of mine first is that I mail out, and the price of stamps is crazy, but I mail out a lot of cards, and I have like a card ministry, and people give me tons of their extra cards, and I think that's fantastic. But that's me. What about you? Either drop it in the chat or speak right out. What do you do to encourage and serve others and support others?
Betsy, if you could join us.
Yep. I'm a co-facilitator for the Brain Association in Massachusetts. So ambiguous loss is something that comes up very often. And one thing that came to mind during one session was that, the challenge that people have, especially women, society trains us to be giving, always place ourselves second, that we are not as valuable as those that we serve. Our value comes from giving and serving others. And this idea came to me and I shared it with the group that imagine that you have an identical twin, that you've had all the same experiences as this identical twin. You know everything that they've gone through, you love them deeply, and then they have a brain injury. How would you relate to them? How would you feel with them? You would show them amazing kindness, compassion, and love. And why can you not then share that same kindness, compassion, love, self-kindness, self-compassion, self-love with yourself? Like imagine yourself as that identical twin and put them first, which means putting yourself first. So that was a technique that seemed to help some people.
Betsy, that's awesome. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah.
Wonderful. I want to flip over to the chat just so that nobody gets overlooked here. Suzanne, nice to see you, friend. Notes, in setting healthy boundaries, I lost relationships, but it was a blessing in disguise. And a lot of us have found that brain injury reveals our true friends. And that's part of the grief process, is saying goodbye to relationships that many of us have had, often for close to a lifetime. And Terry notes, we want our boundaries to be respected, but we don't want to lose the relationship. Good point. People don't want the pain of loss, which is why many of us don't set those boundaries. And Barbara noted, I found one of the most challenging parts of healing from a brain injury is that you don't know how much of the old you is going to come back and how long it will take, or if it even comes back. So you don't really know what to grieve. That's a great point. Maybe Lisa, if you could speak to that a little bit.
Can you rephrase the question, David? I was actually snooping at the other comments.
No worries. Yeah, part of the challenge, I broke some bones when I was injured.
Okay.
And I was told it's going to be 90 days for your cast, 6 months until the pain is gone. And just like it was on a calendar, 90 days the cast was gone, 6 months the pain was gone. So that was very, very predictable. With brain
Yeah.
injury, it's unpredictable. We don't know how much of that old person is ever going to come back, or if they're even going to come back. So
Right.
she just notes that you really don't know what to grieve if you don't really fully understand what you've lost.
You remember what yesterday was like for you, at least. You remember what your life was like, and you do have expectations. So those are the things that you grieve, what you thought you had before, and you thought it was permanent, and then you lost it. And your brain keeps searching, searching, and searching like a GPS looking for it. You're yearning. What kinds of feelings come up for you when that does happen is what I'm interested in. Whoever asked the question, is there a certain feeling that comes up for you? Do you feel it someplace in your body? For me, I feel it in the middle of my chest. I actually sometimes feel throbbing in my throat.
Another comment that I want to make sure it gets put out there. Doris notes, by the way, welcome Doris. We are now officially an international get together today. I'm a mentor for the Ontario Brain Injury Association, the OBIA, and I feel I receive more than I give. And those of us that are in a position to give back to the great brain injury community, I agree with that wholeheartedly. And I'm getting old. The computer glasses are a little tough and the distance glasses don't work. So if you guys see me squinting a little bit, it's part of, I've lived long enough to have some challenges. Rachel notes, I'm so overloaded in the necessary tasks to take care of myself. And as a mother, not feeling like I can sit and watch this presentation without interruption. So I missed most of it. I'm falling behind on laundry, and had to start laundry and handle the needed tasks, and my battery is completely depleted. I can't accept who I am now because the needs keep pressing on me. And
I
such a truism.
that's that I read. That's the one I was listening to, Rachel. I was reading yours, And my goodness, I just have to say that I noticed somebody who showed up today, Dr. Sol Garcia. What are you doing here? Thank you for showing up. She and I did a YouTube together, people on Grief Space, my YouTube channel, and Dr. Garcia, I'm just going to take the easy way out. You are the executive function uh, professional guru, and you have a way to execute tasks when they are piled. David, I hope you don't mind me just taking charge here and just asking Soul to share.
Absolutely.
Hi, friends. Lisa, hello. I'm so
Hi.
glad you invited me here. I'm so happy to be here. My name is Sol Garcia. My doctorate is in education, evaluation, and assessment, and I specialize in executive functioning, the prefrontal cortex part of the brain that helps us execute. And a dear friend of mine, about 5 years ago, her 2-year-old daughter suffered a traumatic brain injury, and I have walked life with her alongside her as her 2-year-old, now 7-year-old, is healing from a traumatic brain injury. And so when Lisa told me about this talk, I knew I wanted to be here and listen in and support. And so I am really passionate about this talk because traumatic brain injuries, as I'm sure everyone here knows, can be so sudden and unexpected. And so my role in supporting anyone that has had a traumatic brain injury is helping them execute priorities. And so it sounds kind of simple, but the challenging part is identifying the priorities. And so the example I give is that back when I have 3 kids, a 1-year-old, a 3-year-old, and a 7-year-old. And when I was going through my postpartum season with each of them, my number one priority was simply to shower. And so the sometimes setting the bar low in terms of like low hanging fruit. What is one thing I can execute today? What is one task I can accomplish today that would give me confidence in knowing that I am capable? I am still a functioning human being. And once I got out of that initial fog of postpartum and I was able to shower, then I took it up a notch. Okay, now I'm going to shower and I'm going to get out of my pajamas or my robe. And so I would say during times of extreme mourning, or when we're going through a difficult time with our medical condition, to identify what are the non-negotiables for you and your own body so that you can feel better. Sometimes it's really small. Like I will sit under the sun for 5 minutes, and that will be my priority. So here are the tasks that or the tips that I always recommend. Spend 10 minutes a day if you're able to grab these index cards. I carry them with me everywhere. And the society calls this brain dumping. I don't care for the word dump because it just feels so, gives me clutter vibes. So I just say one thought per card. Some people, I love Lisa. Lisa has an amazing method called the Pearls method, which includes a similar version to brain dumping. But I would say write down whatever comes to mind. I think when people do it, they're always amazed that they were carrying all of this information in their heads. And then identifying what actually needs to be done and what are just thoughts. And the distance between what we carry in our brains and what lives on paper helps to create some distance between maybe some shame, guilt, regret, um, and then identifying once we're writing down what's in our brain, sometimes what we find is, oh my gosh, I actually have a lot to do, but I can organize these thoughts in a more strategic way. And sometimes what we find is with traumatic brain injury, it feels so overwhelming. And so something that I offer clients is called CogMed. Have folks here heard of CogMed? COGMED. It's short for like cognitive medicine. Yeah, look it up. COGMED, CogMed, like cognitive medicine. There are about 70 licensed practitioners in the nation that support CogMed. Thank you, Lisa. Yes, CogMed. I'm one of them, and it is a service that I offer to anyone that's struggling with working memory or who have had a traumatic brain injury. It is the world's #1 neuroscientific tool. What I find with clients is that they initially feel like an immediate relief that there is something that can help exercise their brain in a way that they have not experienced. So I'm always happy to have a conversation about CogMed. I can drop my email in the chat. And it is something that I would recommend to anyone that is interested in improving their working memory, attention, focus, and who've experienced a stroke, chemotherapy, or a traumatic brain injury. Thank you for allowing me to share a little bit about CogMed this morning here in LA.
I was really surprised to see her. I invited her as a group batch, and I was so delighted to see you on here. Thank you, Sol. That was helpful.
Thank you for sharing. We're grateful that you joined our session today, and a lot of good information. We're coming up on 1 minute before the hour, and attitude really is everything. And I mentioned earlier, I try to be mindful. Mindfulness has been a big part of my own journey, but mindful of what I tell myself. And on the bonus mindset shifts after brain injury, I want to take a moment and just read the second half, because that's the solution. My life is changing. This is what I'm experiencing. Healing will happen in its time. I can move forward. My value remains. I can be honest. I can communicate what I need. I can take the next step. Every one of you who's here today made the decision that this may help you at some point in your recovery. You took the next step. You showed up today. Lisa, thank you. Thank you for who you are, for what you do, for the lives that are improved because of the work that you're doing. We're grateful for your presence here today, and we're pretty good at starting and ending on time. I apologize for not, you guys are great in the chat. Apologize for not getting to everyone. We do have a regular BIHN support group tomorrow. So if you want to kind of continue the dialogue, at Paul's meeting tomorrow, we'll be happy to entertain comments. And thank you all for being here.